The last place I wanted to be was Frostnipistan.
This one's wife. Trump, I will not deport Harry. But do you know why? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This one's wife and the ginger poodle are currently in Canada, and, understandably, a number of people have queried whether he might actually be able to get back, given the pending court case involving the Heritage Centre querying the basis on which he secured a visa. Simply, the argument is that given his admissions of drug taking, which contained in Spare and various interviews, therefore he must have either lied on his visa by saying that he'd not taken drugs when he's admitted in a variety of different places that he has, or that if he was consistent and stated on his visa that he was a drug taker, that he's been afforded special treatment and he ought not to have done, and therefore questions should be asked about that. Either way, there remains a vested interest in ascertaining the state of that visa application, and particularly, many wonder that he might well have lied on his visa application, which would be grounds for deportation. Accordingly, if the hearing arises in Harry's absence that causes the information to be provided that demonstrates that he lies, people have wondered whether there might be a scenario whereby he can't get back into the United States, that his re-entry is barred. We know that Donald Trump is no great fan of this one's wife, and to a lesser extent, the ginger poodle. He is, however, a fan of the royal family as a whole. We also know that Trump operates on a transactional basis because of his narcissism. Given the fact that Biden looked at the Sussexes in a more preferential way, there was a degree of expectation that Trump might just take action to say to Harry, "Get out," or "You're not coming back in." But it would appear that he's not going to deport him. How so? Well, David Millward reports for The Telegraph, Donald Trump will not deport Prince Harry because he's got enough problems with his wife. Good work, Mr. President. Although some of you may well be disappointed at the proclamation that he won't deport Harry, that zinger of an explanation is hilarious. Now, first of all, given the transactional nature of President Trump, just because he says he won't deport Prince Harry doesn't mean at a later date he will stand by that. Remember, the narcissist conditional asterisk exists, whereby what the narcissist says and does has that asterisk, which means that they can change their mind, renege on the deal, do a volte-face. That's the way that the narcissist works, because of the sense of entitlement and lack of accountability that's necessary with regard to the need to gain control, part of the prime aims. Accordingly, just because Donald Trump says, now I won't deport Harry, doesn't mean that he'll be held by that in the future. But even if he is consistent in that regard, and that will, of course, disappoint a number of people because they'd like to see the Sussexes facing that dilemma, the fact is that he says, I won't deport him because he's got enough problems with his wife. Think about that for a moment. In his first intervention on the case in taking office, Mr. Trump told the New York Post that he had no interest in throwing the 40-year-old Duke of Sussex out of the United States. I don't want to do that, the president said. I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. She's terrible. The Duke of Sussex has faced a long-running legal battle over whether he lied about drug taking on his visa application to enter the United States. There has been little love lost between Mr. Trump and the couple since their intervention in the 2020 presidential election, when they implored Americans to exercise their right to vote. This was taken by Mr. Trump's supporters as a tacit endorsement of Joe Biden, and naturally would be interpreted by Mr. Trump as a threat to his control. The fact is that you have the president of the most powerful nation on earth, who is regularly making news with his executive orders and his sweeping away of nonsense initiatives, stating, she's terrible, I feel sorry for you, I'm not going to kick you out of my country because you've got a terrible wife. Not only does that make Harry look completely pathetic, that he's been called out in this manner by the president, who's basically saying, "You're having a shitty time, aren't you, pal? I'm not going to heap on your shit. You're a simp, and you've got an awful and terrible wife." But you've also got the fact that he's absolutely on fire by saying that about this one's wife. She will be going nuts. She'll be going nuts for two reasons. First of all, she can't stand the fact that Trump says that about her, that he, the president, in a position of authority and power, and also that his words go all the way around the planet, but the fact that he says that of her, even if he was just one individual with no power, the fact that a person criticizes her threatens her need for control. It's worse because of who he is, the president, and it's worse because his comment is amplified. It will be picked up by the press in various countries, and then it will sweep out across social media, and people like myself will make videos about it, and people will comment about it, that Harry, Donald Trump's not going to deport you because basically he feels sorry for you because you've got enough problems as it is, because you've got a terrible wife. You can hear the laughter ringing around the planet from all of the people that already recognise that. You can hear the ridicule as once again the Donald, Mr. President, gets it right on the money. He's talking the truth. And as I've told you before, that even though Donald Trump is a narcissist, he, like any other narcissist, can utilise the truth of the matter for the purposes of the assertion of the prime aims. And therefore, you might argue, well, despite threats of trade tariffs, the president does seem to have a concern about the welfare of the British people by not sending Harry back. But the best part of all of this is that she has been described by a highly prominent individual that she's terrible. Now, naturally, as you know, there's no self-reflection on her part. She won't think to herself, oh, if the President of the United States has said this about me, maybe it's time for me to change. She won't. She will just think that he's an awful human being, that he's nasty, that he's a white supremacist, all of these nonsense things that are thrown around. And in the circumstances, this will mean that this one's wife will not respond directly. She will complain about it to anybody who will listen and will stay in a position of withdrawal by basically dismissing what Donald Trump has to say. Thus, as always, the narcissist gets that sense of control. But the wider problem for her is, once again, a prominent and perhaps one of the most prominent people have spoken out against her and has done so in his customary bluff and direct style. No beating around the bush here. I feel sorry for Harry. He's got a terrible wife. What an absolute slamming indictment that is upon this one's wife. I'm sure there'll be more that flows from all of this, and I'll provide you with my further commentary. But for now, Donald Trump has knocked it out of the park in telling the world that not only does he feel sorry for Harry, which makes Harry look like a simp, he declares that this one's wife, by presidential decree, is terrible. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.